Railroad workers 29, they had to strike without a call. But Casey Jones, the union scabby, wouldn't strike at all. Something da 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 da. Casey Jones kept his shit pile running. Casey Jones broke his blooming spine. Casey Jones, he got sent to heaven. For scabbing against the workers on the SP line. Well, we've got a little bit of build-up before we start our watch party. We're going to be watching The Power of Nightmares with Adam Curtis. Hopefully we'll build up some memberships while we're streaming, both on this little hype stream and the later stream when we do the watch party. We've got a couple of goals yet to get to, so hopefully we'll be able to get to those. Monetarily, we're only $100 away from the 12-hour show, which means that we only have membership goals to meet to get there, which is good. Bum, 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 bum. Dun, 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 dun. One pill makes you stronger, while one pill makes you small. And the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Just ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. Do you wear the same jacket every day? It's okay if you do, just genuinely curious. I mean, I do tend to wear this vest a lot because it's more of a fashion item than it is like an actual item of clothing. But I don't usually wear it out a lot, so it doesn't usually get dirty and sweaty and stuff. It's dope. What patches are on it? Lots of different ones. Lots and lots of different ones. Hi, Mr. Flower. What is Benjamin Netanyahu doing by influencing Trump to bomb Iran? Like, what is the broader strategy? Or do you, like, are you asking, like, what is he doing to influence him? I think that, like, honestly, all Benjamin Netanyahu has to do to Trump is to get him in a meeting and woo him. There's this idea going around among some lefties. I kind of argued with Paul Zigo about it the other day in one of his chats, that like the reason why we are doing everything Israel wants us to do, the reason why Trump is doing everything Israel wants him to do, is because they've got compromise on him. But my position is what what could Israel, if there's anybody that's MAGA out there, is there anything Israel could show you or produce that would convince you to stop being MAGA? And I'm saying that with no judgment. Help me prove a point here. Help me prove a point to other lefties right now. Is there anything that Netanyahu or Israel could produce? Anything, anything, anything. Is there anything they could put out that would convince you guys to stop being MAGA? You're the prettiest woman on YouTube? Far from it. Far from it. You ever seen ContraPoints? You ever seen Shoe on Head? I don't even like Shoe's politics, but she's gorgeous. Male witch? I mean, I'm assigned male at birth, but I live as a woman, so not exactly. So MAGA, once again, is there anything Israel could produce in theory that would convince you guys to stop being MAGA? I'm trying to build a point here. Bro, no, it's not an option. Man, I'm not getting any answers. Okay, well, since people in chat are completely unwilling to engage in the topics that I'm presenting them with, I will just lead you down this logical path myself. So, I'm of the opinion that there is nothing Israel could produce, there's nothing anyone could produce that would stop current MAGAs from being MAGAs. We've already got lots of accounts in the Epstein files of him being best friends with Epstein, going to all of his properties, etc., etc. There's a long and lurid interview, a series of interviews with the FBI that a victim did that basically confirmed that Donald Trump molested her when she was 13. There have been like 40 years worth of Trump's own statements and actions to correlate the idea that he's a bad guy. So what at this point could be produced by anybody that would convince MAGA to abandon Trump? There's nothing. And I believe it would take big swaths of MAGA abandoning Trump because in their minds, he is the nexus of this problem. And they can't address it without addressing him. You would have to get them to be willing to address him. And I don't think there's anything Israel could produce to do that. So I don't think Israel has a lot of compromise over Trump. And even if they do, I don't think it scares him. I don't think Trump is scared of compromise. I don't think anybody in the billionaire class is scared of compromise anymore. We just had the biggest compromise release in history in the Epstein files, and what has it changed? Where is the movement? Donald Trump follows Netanyahu's lead because Donald Trump is owned by the billionaires, and so is Israel. It is the trifecta of interests that I keep talking about, and Trump is owned by all three. It's also his own personality being so susceptible to schmoozing and wooing. But like, there's the billionaire class, which Trump is an obvious representative of and advocate for, right? There's that part of the trifecta. Then there are the Christian fundamentalists, which Trump sees as a big part of his base and a big part of the reason why he's able to manifest and utilize power domestically. And then there are the ghouls, just the people who just want to see bloodshed, the people who just want to see things get fucked up, the people that make up the real core of MAGA. And all of these things together are why Trump is participating in this. It's a kind of unique storm of manufactured consent where he is able to do this without the American people rising up. See, the thing is, if Kamala Harris had been elected in 2024, she also would have been doing this. But the American people would not have been doing one little day-long protest against it. No, the American people would have roundly rejected that because there wouldn't be this 1/3 of Americans who have a narrative, doctrinal reason why it has to be okay. The left holds our politicians to account, and the right is always happy to hold leftist politicians to account, but the right does not hold their politicians to account. So whenever they fuck up, they get no kind of backlash from the voters that they care about. It's this fucked up situation where the only people who are actively trying to make America better are people on the left. Like Trump can run an anti-war campaign for a whole year and then win largely on a lot of that rhetoric and then turn around and do that. And sure, the independents that voted for Trump have left him. Some of the wishy-washy Dems that might have voted for Trump have left him. But MAGA is never going to leave him. You could literally, I genuinely believe that Donald Trump himself in the flesh could come and shoot a Trump supporter's mother right in front of them and molest her corpse, and they would continue to be Trump supporters. They're not reachable through conventional methods of reason and logic. You just have to like wait around for them to finally find some axis that they care about. It's like these people that are finally coming over on Trump because the gas prices are going up. It's like, oh my God, why did it take you that long? I mean, I'm glad you're coming over. I'm really glad. I'm happy to see it. But like, come on, man. The Epstein files didn't do it. Continued allowing of Israel to prosecute a genocide didn't do it. Like filling his cabinet with weird Christian fundamentalist white nationalists didn't do it. Gas prices. Gotcha. Hi, Semi. Smoke and tell us, so I will. I'll keep on doing it. Yeah, Terry Austin, well, I've heard you're a corpse fucker. Why did you dig up those people out of that cemetery in 1985 in Oak Grove, Arkansas, and rape them? Why did you do that, Terry Austin? Terry Austin 9114. Why did you dig up a bunch of corpses in Oak Grove, Arkansas in 1985 and molest them? You're with the corpse fucker? Good to know. You're with the necrophiliac? Cool. I was with him. It was fun. Oh, okay. Now I mean that explains it. Of course you're with him. Duh. I'm a liar? Disprove it. Where were you at 6:11 p.m. on October 17th, 1985? Were you not at the Oak Grove Baptist Church Cemetery in Arkansas? Digging up bodies to fuck? Phoebe, keep being you. Fuck the haters. Is there any evidence I'm ever gonna change? Like, at least in this regard, I will always be way smarter than my haters and way better at dismissing them than they are me. Gotta listen to some Grateful Dead and chill out, bro. I do that after the stream, okay? This is my non-chill time. This is my fuck you, I'm mad time. And by the way, we are only $100 and 94 members away from our 12-hour show. You guys have like 14 more days to get to that. Just so you know, it will you can gift memberships that will go to people who really like the channel already. So consider gifting memberships if you would like to contribute to the channel's continued success. Train's coming. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. Typical Biden-Harris supporter. Stupid, hateful, not smarter than the haters. Oh, you poor misguided child. I've been streaming for almost 2 years now, so if you want to, you can go back to some of my first streams on this channel, like my vertical streams, and you can look back at what I had to say about the Biden-Harris ticket. I was a strong advocate of an open primary in 2024 and was openly telling people not to vote for Democrats in that same election year because I believed that Kamala Harris represented a completely insignificant change from Donald Trump and an obviously insignificant change from Joe Biden. What we need is profound, fundamental, deep change here in America. Kamala Harris didn't represent that, and as a result, I didn't tell people to vote for her. So I would appreciate it if you'd get my history right before casting aspersions about me. Alrighty. I'll turn on idiot mode. It hasn't really been necessary lately, but we'll turn it on. Just hit that subscribe button if you want to continue participating in the chat. Unfortunately, there's some people that want to be retarded and spam, and that's no good. And I'm sorry if you get offended by me using the word retard. I don't ever use it in reference to people that are actually mentally disabled, just people that are chuds online for no reason other than to waste other people's time and get themselves off. Hello, do you make money from ads or only donations? Pretty much only donations. I mean, like, I do have like a pretty regular audience at this point, and from what I can tell based on the analytics, a lot of you guys rewatch these streams, so I appreciate that a ton. Thank you guys. That means a lot. So I make a little bit from ads at this point when I remember to monetize a stream or when I don't play any music in and I'm actually able to monetize it. But for the most part, I would say 99% of my income is directly from viewers like you. Whether that is people paying for a content goal with their memberships and their super chats, or people just donating because they like to watch me, it is a wide variety of donation-based income sources. Yippee, less crazies. What color crayon do we think crazy conservatives snort? Red, obviously. Have you seen the color of their hats? It's literally like fire truck crayon red. Not trying to be a bigot. What's your pronouns? She, her, hers. Thank you for asking. You're never going to be perceived as a bigot merely for asking for someone's pronouns. Like, honestly, especially in the modern day, it's seen as an increasingly normal thing to do. So don't worry about it. I think people just wilding out this fine Monday. People are wilding out this fine Monday, but I'll tell you what, people are always wilding out. I was streaming yesterday, and even though it was a Sunday and everything like that, there were still people wilding out. I was getting lots of Jesus loves yous yesterday. I think the Christians all like to hang out on YouTube Shorts after they get off of church, and they look for crazy trans people like myself to assault with messages of Christ. I snort green. When it comes out, people think it's boogers. Big brain move. Big brain move. I snort white so that when it comes out, people think it's Coke. Pronouns. You realize you use pronouns in every fucking, like literally every sentence you say contains a pronoun on average. It is actually pretty hard to say a sentence without a pronoun because in some contexts, even it is a pronoun. Used to snort white. Me too. I never had like a long-lasting problem with it though. I'm definitely that type of chick though. If you offered me Coke at a party, I'd have a hard time turning it down. Adjectives. I know, it's got the same exact energy. Monophones. Just got here. Have we already covered the Iran situation? We have not. So Iran managed to destroy what I believe is probably its most high-value target yet. And even if it's not its most high-value target yet, it is what I think has demonstrated the most specific capacity in Iran's ability to target its neighbors and to target U.S. infrastructure around the Persian Gulf, they destroyed an E-3 Sentry Awacs airplane, which is basically designed to be like an airborne control tower for combat operations. When you're trying to establish air superiority or something like that. It can also obviously warn of incoming attacks and keep a general eye over an area. It's like a surveillance and airborne. It stands for Airborne Warning and Control System, basically a flying control tower that can warn you about shit. They not only destroyed this plane, but it is evident from the pictures that they specifically targeted the most valuable part of the airframe. They didn't just send a random missile to target some part of this plane. Nope, they sent a missile that was specifically able to target the very expensive radome and back half of the plane. So the idea that Iran's military capacity has been wiped out, as our president's been saying, has been completely shattered by the pictures that have come out. How to express my love to a gay person with his name. Oh, I'm not going to read that. Iran is doing more to help Democrats with the midterms than Democrats are doing. Yeah, literally. The Democrats are doing nothing to win the midterms. The most you can say about the Dems is that they've been like, they've been holding firm on this DHS funding shit. But honestly, it's such a weak thing. And I think the only reason they're doing it is so that they can have something to wave around in everybody's face when it comes to the midterms. But they're not actually trying to end this war. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer's biggest complaint about this war is that they weren't asked nicely by the president before he engaged in it. They're, of course, Zionists, so they don't actually care if Greater Israel happens. They don't actually care about the sovereignty of the people of Iran. They don't care about the babies being killed by United States drones and missiles. They just care about the profits, the billionaire profits, and the Greater Israel project. So they are completely bought and paid for by the same interests that are driving the Republican Party and Trump into this war. The idea that we can have any resistance from the Democratic Party as it exists is a futile dream. We need to replace the leadership before we have any hope of seeing like meaningful pushback against this conflict, because they are actively trying to make sure it keeps going. They are trying to skirt this position where they can have the closest position possible to being anti-war without actually being anti-war, because they know that next time they get into power, they've got to be willing to pick up the torch and run with it. Do you want Iran to have a regime change? Eventually, yes, led by a delegation of its own people and a popular uprising. Eventually, yeah, I'd love to see the regime in Iran change by democratic means, led by its own fucking people. I don't think you get regime change with bombs and missiles. We've sure tried it a lot, and look at the outcomes. We invented ISIS by trying to do regime change in Afghanistan and Syria. We basically invented Hamas by allowing Israel to do like long form regime change over its broad region of the Middle East, like the West Bank, the Golan Heights, Gaza. They have actively subverted all of these places' ability to self-govern. They're all taking money from the same foreign donors. There's no political solution to our problem. There are political solutions to the problem, but it's not modern electoral politics. We need something new. We need something new. We can take existing ideas and models that have worked before where specific tactics have worked, but we need something new. It is going to be a political solution because the problems that face us are political problems. To fix a political problem, you've got to have some kind of solution that is going to be political in nature because of the type of problem that it's seeking to solve. But yeah, it's not going to look like voting for Dems. I mean, it might look like for voting for particular Dems in particular districts if you've got somebody really compelling like Kat Abigzala or something. But for the most part, it's not going to look like voting. It's going to look like joining hand in hand with your fellow workers, your fellow Americans, and marching 15 million strong into Washington, D.C., and marching 15 million strong into Wall Street and staying there until our demands are met. That's the real solution. Nobody wants to talk about it. I am the only leftist content creator telling you guys that we need to do that. But that's what needs to happen. That is the solution. We need the summer of love again. I'm not kidding. That's not an exaggeration. It's not being hopeful. I'm telling you guys, it is that or death. It is that or the country dies. Sorry, like there's no two ways about it anymore. It's gotten too bad. The rot has gone too far. I don't know when it's going to start. I don't know what it's going to look like when it does start, but it's going to need to be more than No King's Day, okay? No King's Day would have been a lot more effective if all those people, instead of going home at the end of the day, had piled into vans and started recruiting other protesters as they drove across the United States, heading towards D.C. and Wall Street. And if they were still there now, and if they were planning to stay until Americans have universal health care, until we have better roads, until we have an end to the endless waste, until we have conditional aid to Israel only. Deeply conditional. We need to bring in that choke chain like nothing you've ever seen. We are the only country that has the real mad dog in the Middle East. We're the only country that has a choke chain around its neck. And for a long time, we've just left our hands off of it. It's time we pick up that bitch and yank. How much are you getting paid to riot? I wish I got paid to riot, bitch. The people are a soda bottle ready to blow. Literally. There's this adage I keep thinking about that was so popular in Russia towards the end of the Soviet Union's collapse. We can't go on living like this any longer. We can't go on living like this any longer. You know, you look crazy. Yep. A lot of people throughout history who've helped garner a whole lot of change have looked pretty crazy. We live in fine. What you mean? Y'all are the problem. Wages stagnant for 50 years. Cost of living rising. Rents rising. Homes becoming totally unaffordable. Endless wars in the Middle East. Roads that barely work. Bridges that are sometimes 90, 100, 110 years out of date. How many problems do I need to list off before you realize that that this ain't exactly the land of the free, home of the brave utopia you paint it to be? Exactly how wrong do you have to be before you'll admit it? Tell me now and save me the heartache. Yay, my Google Play balance works again. Well, thank you for the $1. I appreciate it. Caleb, Octopath fan. What did Obama do to help? He was your beloved king. Motherfucker, I'm not an Obama simp. Why don't you just ask me what I feel about Obama instead of presuming how I feel about Obama, bitch? I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Self-righteous, smarmy douchebag. The Republic is falling apart before our very eyes. And literally, I mean falling apart. You know, there's this, I heard Vosh say it the other day, and I haven't looked into it, so I don't know who originally said it. I know he stole it from somebody because he said he did. But there were lots of people in the Roman Empire who didn't realize that the empire had fallen until a bridge near them collapsed and nobody came around to fix it. Or until like a road got washed out and nobody came around to fix it. That is literally what is happening in America right now in real time. Did Clinton or Obama seek approval when they bombed places? The answer is no. Terry Austin, I'm so fucking sick of your ass. You have been here long enough to know I ain't a Democratic simp. You have been here long enough to know that I don't tell people to vote for Dems, and I'm sick of your fucking smarmy ass sitting in here calling me all kinds of crazy. I'm flatly sick of it. Hey yo, how fucked is the war these days? Well, let me, Phoebe Ophi, give you our Holy War update. Iran has been able to destroy an E-3 Sentry Awacs airplane, targeting specifically the radome area of the aircraft, the back half that contains all the really expensive stuff. Yeah, completely wiped that plane out. It has been completely totaled. It might actually be the most expensive thing they've destroyed yet, like just pound for pound in terms of like one piece of equipment they've been able to wipe off the map. Yep, pretty huge success for them. They also lit an oil tanker on fire, another one, in the Persian Gulf. And yet, our president is still going around saying that we're going to destroy Iran's power infrastructure and do all this garbage if they don't do this and that and the other thing. We all know Taco. We all know it's never going to happen. We all know it's fucking hot air because he knows he can't do a goddamn thing because we've been trying our best to eliminate their capacity, and yet they are still, apparently, able to launch missiles capable of destroying an E-3 Sentry AWACS airplane. Phoebe, ma'am, you said we should occupy DC and Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street was not terribly long ago. It made the news, but what long-standing change did we see from it? None. And that's a criticism I have of Occupy Wall Street. It wasn't enough people, and the people got discouraged because things started to change just kind of like naturally by virtue of like a country doing the bare minimum it has to survive through a recession. Of course the economy was going to eventually start going back up, but eventually people started to lose heart, people started to get hungry, people started to it I wasn't around. Well, I was around back then, but I was only 10 when Occupy. No, Occupy was in 2011. I would have been 13. I was only 13 when Occupy happened, but like the perception that I have from reading about it and talking to people who were there and listening to people who were there is that it just kind of slowly started to die out as morale died out, as the economic realities that were setting in started to become more acute, and like I said, things started to improve a little bit. People started to feel less impetus to be out there. What I'm advocating for is something that self-perpetuates for a year if it has to, by continuously pushing the message, by continuously organizing, by providing an environment that people want to be at, that people want to participate in. And I think that that's something that sort of failed in Wall Street. Another thing that failed on Occupy Wall Street was the messaging. We need to make sure that a big part of the conversations we're having in this movement are, what are the core goals? And the core goals need to be like 5 things. I don't know that I'm the smart and intelligent person to come up with them, but I would advocate for an end to these forever wars in the Middle East and totally conditional, only conditional aid to Israel if we continue to aid them at all. Universal health care, infrastructure rehabilitation with an eye towards public transit, public loan forgiveness and publicly funded higher education, and either a universal basic income or a food stipend, like a universal food stipend below a certain income. I think that like these 5 things, or a variety of 5 things that at least includes like universal healthcare and end of the wars, I think that those 2 things alone are enough to get a lot of people up and at it. But you add in a few other things, and then you get a comprehensive plan to actually put America back into action as a productive country that makes things, not just cultural things, but products and cultural things too, and food and agricultural produce, and we just export it to the rest of the world at numbers never before seen. We can do this, but it requires actually doing some shit about the way we run things. You gonna help pay? Motherfucker, I'm self-employed. I already pay a significant fucking chunk of my taxes to the federal government and see nothing in return for it. I'm not on any federal programs, so I would be way happier with my tax money going towards a universal healthcare program than I would be seeing it go to bomb little kids in the Middle East. But all of this is meaningless and unimportant and stupid because taxes are not actually how the government funds spending. I figured this out the other day, and I'm still reeling with the information. And I don't know if I totally agree with it. I need to talk to an economist. I'm just going to put the call out there. I know there's only 75 people watching right now, but I'm going to put the call out there. I want to talk to a current economist, preferably someone with like a CPA or something, live on stream, and have them educate me about how the economy actually works and about how like government spending works. And I'm not looking for some hack that's pushing like a specific political thing either. I like just want the skinny on how it works, good, bad, right, or wrong, you know? Because from what I can tell, money is fake and gay and stupid and unbased and doesn't actually exist and pretty much exists at the whim of like the greedy politicians and corporations that currently own our government, but could actually be controlled by the people if we controlled our government. From what I can tell. Money is the real devil's lettuce. I agree. From what I can tell, it seems like it. From what I can tell, the only reason why money exists is to make it easier to exploit poor people and working class people broadly, and make it easier for rich people to protect their wealth and grow ever richer. Unless you think that money has always been the standard of trade, not true. Not true. I mean, there have always been certain things valued as currency, I guess, for like certain types of exchanges. But really, the idea of like money being the primary basis of an economy, that's an invention of mercantilism. There are lots of different ways to structure an economy. Not all of them involve money. Hi there, I'm Catholic Republican and a male and wondering why you don't like Trump. Really, my bigger problem is with the tendency that Trump represents and not so much Trump himself. I mean, I do have plenty of problems with Trump himself. I think that he's like a douchebag personally, from what I can tell. I think he's like a braggadocious narcissist. I've got lots of personality flaws I can identify in the man. But as far as his policies represent the sum total of what Republicans have been wanting to do since before I was born. It's the general tendency that he represents towards a mask-off version of that, where they are more willing to pursue these things than they've been since Reagan. And I think that, if you were to catch me in the Reagan years, if I'd been like a radio personality or a TV personality or something in the 80s, I think I'd probably be making these same criticisms of Reagan. I'd be saying, I've got all kinds of problems with Reagan personally, or I've got all kinds of problems with his policies. But really, like, they've been wanting to do this for a long time. You read this policy document and that policy document. Seems like this is a tendency that's been growing for a while. Seems like the biggest problem is that he's now the one who's willing to actually go full mask off and do the stuff that they've been trying to get other Republicans to do for years. I don't think, in other words, that we can get rid of the MAGA problem by getting rid of Trump. I think that we need to fundamentally restructure society, or Trumps will keep popping up. Trump is just better than Kamala? I don't think there's any difference between them, friend. Kamala wanted to fuck over Iran just as much as Trump does. And she was more open about it, which is scary to think about. Asked on 60 Minutes who her greatest international enemy was, Kamala Harris answered unequivocally, Iran. And when asked if she would commit to committing military action, that didn't make sense. Anyway, when asked if she would commit to military action in the region, she said basically a variation of, I can neither confirm nor deny. So on the matter of foreign policy, there's absolutely no distinction between the two. They are both Zionists that want to see greater Israel and want to see the billionaires take over the oil and mineral resources of the Middle East. In that way, they're completely indistinguishable. They are both liberals in the sense that they want to see capitalism go on forever and always. I guess, well, Trump is probably more closer to like a corporatist or a fascist, honestly. And honestly, with the Democrats being what they are, Kamala Harris is not far off from that either. She's like a neoliberal, which is, just the side of a fucking corporatist, and a corporatist is just the side of a fascist. I mean, like, these things, they have lots of connotation and weight because of the way we talk about them and because of the types of people that are used, that these terms are used to describe sometimes. But the truth of it is, these are accurate descriptors of these people's policies when it comes to the politicians I'm talking about right now. Kamala would have listened to the generals who were saying it's a bad idea, Trump is insane. I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think she would have gotten new generals. I genuinely do. Maybe I'm wrong, and I know that I understand this is not a popular take amongst my audience, but I do not think Kamala Harris was actually meaningfully different than Donald Trump in any way other than social issues. Obviously, Kamala Harris would not have been talking shit on trans people constantly, probably. She probably would not have been anti-gay marriage. She probably wouldn't have been anti-Roe v. Wade. But would she have done anything to protect it? Obama didn't. Obama didn't do anything to protect it, and he had a Democratic majority when he got into office. I'm just saying, if we don't fix this tendency within the Democratic Party, we as progressives are barbecue chicken in terms of electoral success. Like, we just don't have a voice anymore unless we, and that's why I say the Democrats are on their way out too. I mean, it's one of these things where we and the Dems are currently locked in this like fight for power that I genuinely believe unless we take it over, there's no hope for that type of electoralism. There's just a new Workers' Party. I think that these midterms will be a big revelation. Do the Dems win, and on what policies? Because if they win on a bunch of centrist, moderate policies, but the turnout's real fucking tight and shit, like the turnout's low so the contest is tight, that is a sign that I'm right, the Democratic Party is failing, and it's time to jump ship and look for like some third-party option and push that with all my weight. That is the bellwether. If you're new to the chat, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Yes, 100%. Thank you, Nicole Hahn. I appreciate you plugging the like button. Yes, I haven't plugged it all stream, but do please hit the like button. It really does help a lot. Whether you're liking the stream, hating the stream, it doesn't matter. Hit that button to make sure more people find my chat and can participate and add their voice to the discussion. Kamala sucks, but she's not Hitlerite like Trump. Obama had the sense to tell Israel to fuck off. Listen, my only argument is her rhetoric. If no warmonger, then why warmonger shaped? If she's not a warmonger, why did she call herself a warmonger? I don't know. What about Libya? Obama didn't tell Israel to fuck off there? That's a good point. That's a good point. All our presidents have been helping out Netanyahu for 20 years, longer than that. Well, I mean, Netanyahu's not been in power for 20 years, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, we've been helping Israel oppress the Palestinian people and their neighbors in the Middle East since 1948. Can you tell us what a woman is? Sure. Someone who has a vagina and is cool with it, or wants a vagina and, expresses themselves and lives as though they want to be perceived as someone who does. Does that make sense? Probably not, because you're like 12 and have an IQ of a tree. But whatever. Like, even if you want to define it along biologically essentialist lines, trans women still exist. Because the whole premise of being trans is like, man, I wish I'd been born with this body instead of this body, you know? So who do you think will be a good candidate? Good candidate. You ask as if we're going to get that opportunity with the Democratic primary process. If they do give us the opportunity to elect a progressive in 2028, I would be willing to see someone like Ro Khanna, honestly. It's about the only Democrat I can think of that I can trust the record of. Like, I think that if our Congress was more Ro Khanna's than sold out Nancy Pelosi's, I think we would probably see some actual change. I think we would start to see some pushback against this Iran war. And a lot more change would be happening locally and stuff like that. So it's just like, do you guys realize how bad it is for the Democrats to be ineffective representatives of progressive policies? Like, do you guys realize what a fucking bad thing that is? Look at the Soviet Union if you want a perfect example of what happens when a state or a polity claims to be leftist, but then fucks up and doesn't do shit right. Doesn't do shit well. I don't know if you guys understand what a danger to the American people it is, what a danger to the progressive movement it is for the Democrats to be so stupid and incompetent and unwilling to stand up and fight for the things that they fight for on the campaign trail. That makes our communities worse, and communities getting worse is what draws people towards these radical and usually fascist policy positions. We need good politicians, not politicians who are not less bad. We need good people in these positions of power. I think that once you learn about economics, you're going to turn Republican. No, because the world I envision right now is a one that's that doesn't have money as a part of it. The way I envision society, and if I think about what I would see as not a utopia, I guess in the traditional sense, but as what I would see as an ideal society, it doesn't require money to function. So I don't think that learning about economics is going to turn me Republican. I just want to learn how to talk about it with some basis of fact, because I know I know what I know, but I also know enough to know that there's tons I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like Donald Rumsfeld the more I talk about this. Listen, there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns. In other words, there are things that we know that we know. We have confirmation. And then there are things that we know that we don't know. Things we know they should have, but for which we can find no evidence. And then there are unknown unknowns. Things we haven't thought of yet. I'm actually adding a lot more nuance to that quote. The original quote is so fucking confusing and retarded that it doesn't even make any sense. Donald Rumsfeld is a fucking hack and a moron. They're weak and corrupt, 100%. And if we don't root out that weakness and corruption, then we're just going to have to go with a third party. I'm sorry. It's going to take an independent movement if we want to change things, because there are things about the system and the structure that do need to change. And there is a structure right now that governs these systems. There are ways we could influence it, but right now we are actually beginning to see whether or not the Democratic Party is a capable utility for bringing that change. I don't believe it is. I don't think it is, and I'm thinking that we're seeing a tipping point now where either progressives are going to take it over, like real progressives are going to take it over en masse. I'm not talking about the squad. I'm talking about a massive fucking movement of different people and a massive shift over, or it's going to fucking fail and fall and be replaced by an American Workers' Party or an American Labor Party or something like that. I definitely find myself alienated from the Democrats and their policies, but would you say imprisoning Trump and co is a bigger issue to solve than finding good-hearted politicians and not voting Dem? You can't imprison Trump and co with current Democrats. That's why it's so important to vote for not just Dems in general, but the right Dems. That is why it's so fucking important. If we want these people to face accountability, the current the current Democratic leadership is not going to let that happen. Joe Biden had the opportunity to prosecute Trump for trying to do an actual coup, and they didn't do it. Joe Biden had the chance to prosecute Trump and co. back in 2021, all the way up through 2024. He didn't do it. The Dems, they dragged their feet. They made a big noise about trying to, but just couldn't get it through. Current Democratic leadership is unwilling to see this happen because they are unwilling to see their corruption rooted out and treated the same way. We need to root out the corrupt pieces of shit and replace them with good people if we're to have any hope. Because the corrupt pieces of shit have a financial and a personal incentive to not allow that to happen. I support Trump. Well, thank you for the $1.99. You're perfectly welcome to sit in here and debate with me. You know, I do like having people that disagree to argue with, for sure. I saw the Chinese weather balloon got shot down live. Everyone just forgets that happened. Yeah, that was weird. Everyone does forget that happened. But it just, like, the thing that gets me about that is, number one, how it was memory hold. You're right. I haven't thought about that shit in months and months, years maybe. I don't know how long ago it happened, but I haven't thought about that shit in ages. Probably not since 2 weeks after it happened. And it feels like that was on purpose. And the other thing that gets me about that is, how the fuck did that thing get all the way across the United States before it got shot down? That don't make a goddamn lick of sense. The West Coast is blanketed in military bases. If you've never been out there, trust me, it is blanketed in military bases. How? Like, how on earth did that manage to happen? What do you think about Charlie Kirk's death? I actually wrote a song about it, but it would offend you very deeply. I think that it was a tragedy, obviously. I think it was a horrible thing. You know, I don't think it was right. But I'm also not crying any salty tears because he died. I don't know. I think Charlie Kirk was a backwards, bigoted moron who nevertheless did not deserve to die shot dead like a dog on the street. Is that nuanced enough? I mean, you could disagree with me on it. I don't think it's a tragedy because we lost some great figure. I don't think he's some martyr. In fact, my song says that. Charlie Kirk did not die a martyr. Charlie Kirk died up there in vain. They're probably able to get it up in the air. And I'm not talking about getting it up in the air. Like, they could have gotten it up in the air a number of ways. They could have sent it over on a drone, had the drone self-destruct, but have it have a capsule that self-releases the perfectly safe balloon afterwards. Then it's got a cartridge in there that is programmed to automatically release the helium into the balloon, yada, yada, yada. Like, there's a number. I can sit here and fucking theory farm with you for 2 hours about what might have happened to get it on our shores. I'm talking about, how did it get across the country? Because not just the West Coast, but America is blanketed with military bases. And if you would listen to our rhetoric when it comes to our military capabilities and our military spending, you would believe that this entire country is just protected from any of that kind of intrusion into our airspace. It just seems like an incredibly strange thing. Well, Namzug, whether I disagree or agree with that take will have to be left to your imagination, I suppose. You can understand why my ass with 87 viewers can't exactly say that comment out loud. I think they waited till it got over ocean water so no one got hurt. Well, that's fair enough, but I gotta tell you, man, I've traveled all over the United States. I lived in a minivan for 2 years, paid my way around with that guitar and my voice, and I saw a lot of empty farmland with nothing but abandoned old farmhouses on it between, the East Coast and the West Coast. Lots of it. Seems to me like they could have shot it down over fucking New Mexico or Texas or Oklahoma or Missouri. Seems to me like there were a number of places they probably could have shot it down without, because it was a weather balloon basically, right? It was like a surveillance / weather balloon. So it's not like the biggest danger is is overshoot basically from whatever munitions they use against it. That's one of the problems. That's another one of the problems. And I think about this not as someone who's ever served or has any connection to the military industry, but just as someone who's fascinated by military tech. One of the problems that comes from us having a military industrial complex is that there's a huge incentive for us to have the biggest, baddest stuff around, the biggest, baddest stuff possible, and to use that whenever we can. But also, because of that, there's very little in terms of stuff that's not that you could use on softer targets. Now that I think about it, the biggest danger posed from shooting down the weather balloon was probably not the damn balloon itself. It was probably the fucking guided missile that they used to shoot it down, or whatever they used to shoot it down. I'm not 100% sure. I saw it happen. I was at Holden Beach. It was kind of cool / scary. The fighter jet launched a missile at it. Okay, so I was right about how they shot it down. Yeah, so they launched a $35,000 missile at it. Why do they not have... Why don't they have some kind of lesser munition that they could deploy against even if it was something like a Shahed drone. A Shahed drone flies very slowly compared to a jet, and it is pretty small compared to a jet or most of the targets that you would think of being attacked by a big air-to-surface missile or air-to-air missile. So it just seems to me like there should be some kind of option that they could deploy on the plane, which they had. Surely they had they would have had to. We knew about it for fucking hours and hours before they would have mustered that jet to go hunt down the fucker. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I've never served and I've never been connected to the military industrial complex in any way. So maybe there's some back end reason why it's just not feasible. But it seems to me like there should be some kind of pretty inexpensive and pretty low danger munition that can be used for shooting down little drones and weather balloons and just unidentified threats, I guess. Tell us how Biden and Kamala Harris handled the border. Like shit, because they're basically just custodians of Republican policy that like to prep up the ball for the horrible fascists to come around and make things even worse later. Hard to tee up the ball for the Republicans if you actually fix the fucking border problem and you actually introduce a forgiving and compassionate immigration system with short wait times that allows people to get in here and start without having to wait around for years and spend thousands of dollars sometimes just for the opportunity to swing a hammer in America. It's fucking stupid. Both parties have an interest, by the way. Both parties have an economic interest in keeping the immigration system in America fucked. They like keeping an underclass they like keeping a second-class citizen category of undocumented immigrants who can be mistreated like shit by all these big meat conglomerates and agriculture conglomerates that donate to both parties. Gavin Newsom seems like a Bond villain to me. He is. He is the personification of the rot I'm talking about within the Democratic Party. Literally, the perfect personification of the rot. By the way, here in just a few minutes, we're going to be doing an all-nighter, it's going to be an all-nighter, I can already tell, watch party. Probably in like 20 minutes, we're going to start it up. We're going to be watching The Power of Nightmares by Adam Curtis live on this channel. The stream's already set up. I hope that YouTube will let me rebroadcast it without any issues. If it doesn't, I might have to set up a Kick account real quick. If I could hook you, I would. Here you go, pal. Pat, pat, pat. Thank you for the $2. I appreciate it. Phoebe, it's great to see you having so many viewers now. I mean, honestly, not to sound narcissistic or self-obsessed, but this is what I'm used to sitting at. And whenever I'm sitting around at like 40 people, I literally feel worse about myself. Not because I feel like I'm doing anything wrong necessarily, but because like, well, I wouldn't say I feel worse about myself, but I feel like pissed that it's not hitting. I feel pissed that my voice isn't being heard, you know? And when it's going like this, when we've got like 150 people in here, it is just so nice to be able to sit here and have an in-depth conversation with a bunch of different people and a bunch of different perspectives, people disagreeing, people agreeing, people taking completely different stances. It's awesome. But it pretty much only happens if you've got this many people in here. If you don't have this many people in here, it's like 99% hate, and all I can do is just, you know, sit and burn people all night, which is not that fun, contrary to how good people tell me I am at it. I think there's good and bad politicians on both sides, and we need an age cap on presidents, though. I 100% agree on the age gap for the age cap for presidents. Yeah, the age gap between the president and the median voter should definitely be reduced. Let's reduce that age gap. We're also worried about age gaps in relationships between consenting adults. But how about we start worrying about the age gap between the president and the median voter? The president's going to be 80 years old this year. Joe Biden left the presidency at like 81 or 82. How many more of these octogenarians are we going to tolerate before we finally say this is a problem? I don't know, but it is a problem, and I'm willing to say it now. As far as there being good and bad politicians on both sides, I don't know about like a whole lot of good Republican politicians, man. I guess you'd have to cite me some examples, maybe. But, you know, of course, I as a trans woman are going to be biased against most Republican politicians because most Republican politicians have taken a hardcore stance against trans people. So that kind of like, that compels us to disagree, basically. By the way, we are now $95.20 away from our 12-hour show goal, which is going to cover some like right-wing chud content, as I call it, some Asmongold, some Nick Fuentes, some Nick Shirley. We're also going to cover my political background, how I got to where I am now, and some like pieces of media that were fundamental to that. And it's going to be a really fun show, but you can donate towards that either via Cash App, which is down below, which is preferred because YouTube doesn't take a fee, and it's instantly useful to me. But also, Super Chat is available, and I see those instantly. I can read your chat out loud. It's very nice. Either way, I appreciate it. It helps us get towards that goal, and it helps supports me in my journey to be a full-time content creator. Yeah, I get that from your perspective. I don't think all are completely anti-trans, though. Well, yeah, I don't even think Donald Trump himself is personally anti-trans. I think that he adopts anti-trans rhetoric because it's red meat for the base. But I think that Donald Trump he's a boomer New York power broker that grew up in the era of Andy Warhol and The Factory. I'll take that he's racist. Okay, like in some circles, queer acceptance came before genuine recognition of racial differences in certain circles. And It sucks that it's that way, but it's like evident that Trump is probably racist. Is he queerphobic though? I mean, it would be kind of out of character, like I said. Maybe, maybe. But I also don't know if he's genuinely racist or if his racism was useful to him as a way to make more money. Because all of the cases that you can point to and say, yeah, Trump is a racist, I mean, it could be that he's personally bigoted towards black people, or it could be that he is taking advantage of an existing system of oppression to make money and feeding into it, which is, in my opinion, just as bad, but the difference is it's not ideologically driven. I don't know. I've never had a conversation with the man and never will. When is the watch party? I'm going to go live with it in about 15 minutes. How are we going to support Dems when they just finished supporting Israel to the hilt? Exactly. Well, that's the problem, right? That's why the only Dems you can support right now are people who are actively trying to change the party leadership, who are actively calling out Israel and its genocide, who are actively calling out this Iran war. No more moderate Dems. Period. Full stop. No. None. We need lefties. We need progressives. Period. Moderate Dems are a cancer on the American people. Not because their rhetoric is not nicer than Republicans, because obviously it's nice that it's that way. But it's the only good thing about them. And their primary effect, over my lifetime at least, has been to ensure Republican policy is able to be picked back up on the next time one gets into office, and promising tons while failing to deliver in major ways. They have embittered the people towards progressive ideals, and if we don't push back against that and show that there is a distinction between a Democrat and an actual progressive and an actual leftist, we're fucked. We're cooked. No, people say he's racist because he was a slumlord. That's why people say he was racist. You need to look up on this. You need to look into this. This is not shit he did while he was president. This is shit that he did while he was a New York landlord. I don't think the left cares about trans or anyone else. They're just using trans in other groups. The Democrats don't actually care about us. The left does. I'm a part of the left. We do care about trans people. As a trans people and a leftist, I can assure you we do. It's the Dems who are using it as a way to get votes and electoral support. I, as a leftist, I'm way more likely to use economics to try to get through to you than I am the whole trans thing. A big thing I like to say to people that are all mad about me being trans is like, ultimately, why are you more angry at me than you are at your boss that passes you over for promotions every time in favor of the person he's known for 10 years that he hired off the street because came in needing a job? Like, why are you more mad at me than the billionaire who ensures that your wages stay stagnant and your benefits aren't shit? Why are you more mad at me than the politicians who ensure that nothing ever changes here? That our roads keep getting shittier, that our bridges keep washing out, that our buses keep looking nasty and being outdated. You can be mad at me if you want to. It's not going to change your low wages, higher rent, or shitty buses. It's not going to rebuild the collapsed bridge that, services the back road you live on. It's not going to rebuild the shitty highway that you use to get back and forth to work that's popped your tires 3 times because there's a pothole you can't always see in the dark. Like I said, hate me if you want to, but it's not going to fix those problems. All the hatred in the world is not going to fix those problems, honey. Thank God I don't live in a shithole liberal state. I live in Mississippi. Our roads here are terrible. Bridges wash out every year on account of floods. The canals that used to ensure that farmland and lowlands stayed relatively dry have been left to rot, are completely unmaintained. The people who own them are mostly unfriendly and do not allow you to maintain them for free of your own volition. And as a result, the like there is literally just whole swaths of Mississippi that are returning to nature, not because they're like doing so in a structured, compelled way, but because nobody gives a fuck anymore, and we don't do anything to maintain anything anymore. Yes, I have heard about the Mississippi Education Miracle. There are things we're doing right. Yes, I fucking talk about it all the time. Yes, so let me talk about it a little here. Mississippi, when I was in school, used to be the worst state in the country to get an education. There were some years we ranked fucking worse than Puerto Rico, which isn't a state. Just to tell you how bad it is, right? There were some years where we ranked worse than Puerto Rico, and that was the standard when I was in school. No wonder I'm so stupid, right? But no, I graduated from a Missouri school system. I did high school there. But point is, when I was in school, real shit, horrible. We were one of the worst in the country for literacy rates, both adult and childhood. We're still pretty bad on adult literacy rates. When it comes to childhood literacy rates, we're now number 4 in the nation. We're right up there next to California, Massachusetts, and New York in terms of childhood literacy. Your kid is more likely to read living in Mississippi than they are in almost any other state. Pretty cool, right? And that is the Mississippi Education Miracle. There's been a wide variety of different programs they've introduced. One of them is this program where if you go to school for education here in Mississippi, they will pay for your education as long as you agree to a 5-year contract teaching here in state. And a lot of people do it. And as a result, a lot of new blood has gotten into the schools. They've poured money into renovating these schools and providing new materials and figuring out materials that work and abandoning ones that don't. And as a result, things have turned around. Just goes to show you what a policy initiative followed through on and given consistent care can do. Literally, it goes to show you that there are the mechanisms for change here in the state. And it's also proof that not everything is bad in every Republican state either. I will tell you, though, a lot of people that have been pushing that forward have been people that are kind of like what I would call quietly progressive. They might like be registered independent and vote Republican sometimes, but they liked Bernie and like they secretly voted Joe Biden. They might joke about Trump with their friends at the bar, but like that kind of tendency is so ubiquitous down here. There's a reason why Kamala Harris was able to win over a third of Mississippi's votes. Worth noting. And then you think about how low turnout was for Dems. That means if turnout had been high and it had been a candidate everybody liked, Mississippi might have flipped blue. Maybe. Who knows? It's about phonics, I heard, more so than monetary support, as many places give money but don't get success. It's about giving monetary support to programs that work and pulling it from programs that don't, basically. Play your guitar? I guess I could play the guitar. Tell you what, I always put a $10 price tag on the guitar. If you want to unlock it, it's $10. I'm going to use the bathroom, but before I do, I'm going to plug the donos real quick. Consider donating either via Cash App or via Super Chat. Either way is great, but Cash App doesn't take a fee, and I get to use it instantly. We are $95.20 away from our 12-hour show. We're also, however, unfortunately, 94 members away. So, please consider joining the membership or gifting memberships to other people, because gifting memberships is also a thing you can do, and it's a very useful way to grow the channel if you're a fan. Oh, hi. I had to stretch. Man, I like it when the moon is full at Rainbow, but I do not like it when I'm at home. What is going on in chat? Oh, man. Sometimes I just want my chat to, like, make sense, and then it doesn't at all, and there's nothing there that's useful or good. Oh my fucking goodness gracious. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm just like reading the chat and it's just nothing but spam. It's like, Jesus, I walk away for 10 seconds and it's nothing but spam. You're not very ladylike? I'm sorry I don't satisfy your very particular distinctions of what makes a woman. Sorry. I'll try harder next time. You seem sick? Oh, no, I was just coughing because, you know, smoker's cough, basically. Chair stream bad for views? I know, yeah. Well, sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you just have to use the bathroom and you have to walk away, and it's how it is. I mean, tomboys exist. I don't even bring that up with these people because it's like honestly a misogynistic trope that women have to act or be a particular way to be valid, and they just extrapolate it extra hard to trans women. But the truth is, there's an underlying misogyny that creates trans misogyny, and like there is no amount of passing or dressing perfectly woman-like that will exempt you from that at the end of the day. If people find out you're trans and like if you pass perfectly, if people find out you're trans, there are people who are going to make fun of you for that. It's just like the way our culture is right now, and it should be fought back against, argued against. I mean, like, don't, you know, I do advocate for people to not make a fool of themselves. You know, stay calm and cool and collected. But people need to know that they're not in the right for being transphobic. You spend your whole life playing the victim instead of doing anything about it. You're not a woman just because you say you're a woman. You're taking away actual women's rights by doing what you're doing. No arguments, just accusations. No virtue, just vitriol. I reject your comments' worthiness and move on. You're the one whose feelings facts don't care about, friend. Transgender people are backed up by a wide variety of well-studied science. Sorry you don't like it, but that's not going to change the facts, little kid. Your opinions and your prescriptions based on Bronze Age bullshit don't amount to a hill of beans in the face of medical consensus. What's your view on Charlie Kirk? I think he was a backwards, bigoted moron who nevertheless did not deserve to be shot dead like a dog on the street. It's weird to me how many hateful people take so much time to like spam crosses, like that's helping their argument. Yeah, I think ultimately it just comes from a desire to wipe their religion on other people's faces. And like it comes from the oppressive desire of the deeply fundamentalist Christian that's been raised in nothing but that, and been raised with this like oppressive ideal of Christianity that is it's basically the ideology of the Crusaders, and it's been preserved to the modern day, and it lives on still in certain people. It's literally not my opinion. It's like saying oxygen is necessary to breathe. Do I need to like catch you up on like the science behind trans people? Do you like genuinely not understand it? Is this like your first exposure to an actual trans person and you've heard nothing but like Matt Walsh and Steven Crowder talk about it, and now you're actually meeting a trans woman for the first time and you're like, I don't understand this. I may not be smart, but at least I know how to spell when I use it in that context. I may be a dumbass, but at least I can spell. Holy shit, trans people exist? What's next? Cars go fast? Actually, you wouldn't fucking believe this, but not only do cars go fast, some of them go really fast. Like super duper fast. Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know either. I found May you tell me the science articles to support your claim? Sure. Look up Mayo Clinic transgender, and you will literally be able to find like a 19-page long write-up that's meant specifically for lay people to understand the science behind trans people. And every single one of them comes with a long list of like studies and articles and peer-reviewed journals at the bottom of it that will tell you all about what this information is exactly sourced from. I don't want to hear about my teeth from anyone with a letter as their username. I don't like to hear from motherfuckers without a tooth in their head telling me about how yellow my teeth are. You're jealous of me because I got all fucking 29 or however many I'm supposed to have. Probably ain't 29. It's probably like 32 or something. It's probably an even number. I've even got my wisdom teeth. The sun ain't even yellow? Yeah, that's just the way we perceive it. The sun is actually like, I mean, it's not colored. It's just like white, I guess. Like, if you look at the sun for a brief second, it's like, I feel like it's perceived as yellow because sunlight does it does like have like a yellowish kind of tint to it, especially at like dawn and dusk, but it's not actually yellow. Anyway. Mind man, your avatar is bait, you motherfucker. Actually, the sun is orange. The atmosphere filters the light, baby. Is that true? I wouldn't know. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not an astrologist. Why are you expecting me to think about the sun and like know what color it is? I'm not an astrologist, bro. Subscribe just to tell you I love your vest so much, okay? Cool. Thank you. I'm a massive space nerd. It's orangish red. The atmosphere filters the light through the various layers. Neat. Well, good to know. Good to know. Also, your picture is bait, and it made me lean forward to make sure you're not a Nazi. No, man. I'm down for people doing whatever they want, but I do find lack of clinical research on long-term HRT usage in cancer a bit concerning. Opinions? I'm not sure that this isn't being studied already. I would imagine that it's like a bit hard to have like comprehensive long-term studies on this because like studying trans people in a genuine medical capacity, it's been around for like 100 years or so, but like the like big uptick in it didn't happen until like the 60s and the 70s. And I feel like there are probably some long-term studies that could be done at this point, but it feels to me like it's more of a matter of the issue in general not being that well studied. I mean, it's like if you look it up, there are wide gaps in the amount of understanding that scientists have about the male body versus what we understand about the female body. And a lot of that comes down to like, just the general tendency towards patriarchy in our society, and like as a result the male body being more fascinating to the people of science. They're like weird structural biases that influence how these things are studied, and I think that the structural bias that exists towards trans people plays pretty heavily into the fact that there are aspects to our treatment that aren't as well studied as some other facets of life might be. How is high like vaguely Nazi? I'm genuinely curious where that thought comes from. Oh, it's the red border with the white, and then the like, you know. At first, like from afar, it looks like a swastika, almost. Not quite. Like, as soon as my blind ass leaned in, oh, okay. But I mean, if you look up a Nazi flag, you'll get the idea. You know, red background, white circle, black image. I set that PFP in like 2012. Did you think when you said it, huh, this kind of looks like a Nazi symbol, or did it just look cool? Because if it just looked cool, that's fine. But if you're like a recovered Nazi, I want to know. No King's March yet actually has kings. I know, that's hilarious. Listen, I'm just going to say it. The No King's Marches are great for certain reasons, for certain things, and I hope that the people who met there continue to talk to one another. But that's about all it's good for. That was lib shit. What did it have for? Like, what did it accomplish? What did it do? People are already moving on to other stuff. People are already talking about other things. I think it's good to get people out there, but you need to get them out there for longer than 12 hours. And there were a lot of No Kings protests that didn't last 3. That's not a protest, that's a parade. You need to have people sitting in, marching en masse, and not leaving until their demands are met. You need to have people that are being oppressed by the police. Like, I know it sounds awful and horrible, and like, why would you want that? Because the images that come out of that are irrefutable and inarguable. They pierce to the heartstrings of every human being that sees them. It is images like those that won the original civil rights movement. I hate both sides, but the left is delusional. Well, thank God you explained how in a cogent way. It was the largest protest in American history, and it's out here every single week. We pulled 350K. We got oppressed by the cops, and they're already in the news. In my opinion, it really is impactful. Let me know what change it creates. I feel like in some places protests have continued week after week, but I'm sorry, one day of protest a week still ain't enough. And I know that sounds rich coming from my country bumpkin ass, sitting on my ass streaming. I get it. But I'm the one out here arguing for a national movement, and I'm the one who keeps saying, I'll join it. Fuck it. I'll make whatever arrangements I gotta make. I'm there. We start moving people out to Washington, D.C. and Wall Street, I'm there. But I don't own a van anymore. I can't be the first vehicle out, okay? Nor do I have enough reach to convince even 12 people probably to follow me. I'd be lucky to have, I'd be lucky to get as many disciples as Jesus had in his lifetime, okay? What about a national strike? Would that have any chance in the U.S.? Yes, if it was sustained. Yeah, if it was sustained and captured at least 10% of America's workforce, yes, it would. A national strike would also work, but that's a lot harder to organize. In my opinion, a lot of these social movements, if you look at them in the past, they have built up and built up and built up for years. And then there was something that happened like a spark that ignited, and it was like a forest fire. And like a forest fire, it left the platform for change in its wake. But also like a forest fire, it spread from that one initial flashpoint to the people around. And more people mobilized, and more people started getting out there, and more people started joining in on the action. Just curious, why do you think you're a girl? Because I feel like one. I definitely don't feel like a man. I've heard men talk about what being a man is like, and I'm like, ew. I've heard plenty of women talk about what being a woman is like, and with the exception, admittedly, of, period cramps. I feel like I relate to those experiences a lot more, and a lot more to that like perspective. Helping to free Gaza? Yeah, that's literally one of the fucking main things I want as part of this big movement. Dumb fuck. The chief thing I want us to fight for is an end to the forever wars in the Middle East and an end to aid to Israel unless they are willing to abide by very strict limits on what they can do and a long-term peace plan that establishes something that works there, where people are not dying and children are not being killed en masse. Civilians aren't dying every day for no reason. That's my main focus. That's what I think we should focus on in this mass movement I keep advocating for. Not just that, but I think it's the chief thing. Soros isn't on the left. Yeah, I mean, Soros might be like a liberal, I guess, but he's not a leftist. He donates to some progressive causes and shit, like, he's one of the most apt billionaires to donate just in general. But he's not on the left. I think he just sees like the left and progressives and Democrats, the three of them being distinct, as bulwarks against the sort of authoritarian fascism that he had to flee from as a child. But I don't think he personally is much of a leftist. I think he just sees us as a bulwark against the Nazis. He's like, well, the left is pretty stupid when it comes to economic policy, but at least they will not throw me in camp. Is Soros' relationship to the left. I repeat, they might be stupid when it comes to economic policy, but at least they will not throw me in camp. Thoughts on Big Yahoo being passed? I don't think Netanyahu's dead, dude. I don't think so. I mean, I guess they could be hiding it from everybody, but what would be the point? Literally, what would be the point? It would be perfect. They love to play the victims. Israel loves to play the victim. Oh my god, that's horrible, Jet Boy. That sucks. I don't know about Punk in the Park in Iowa, but that does suck. It be on. It be on blank. Israel literally loves the fact people think he's dead. Yeah, so if he actually was dead, why wouldn't they just announce it? I'm pretty sure he's alive. Israel fucking loves the fact that people think Netanyahu might be dead. And that's what I'm saying. If Netanyahu was dead, we would know because the Israeli media would be running with the story that he is dead. We would be getting official confirmation from the state. We would be getting official confirmation from the IDF and a lurid discussion and description of how the Iranian missile pierced the Iron Dome's defenses, and at the very last moment, a missile exploded behind it, trying to intercept it, but didn't, and it finally crashed into the Prime Minister's house. Like, we would be getting that type of shit. We would be getting, like, the play-by-play of exactly how it went down. We would be getting his body in a state funeral. He's alive. Motherfucker is alive. If he was dead, they would have told the world by now because they would have been using it as fucking victim points. It would make Israel look weak? No, it would not. No, it would not. Israel doesn't even care about looking weak, besides. Like, even if it would make Israel look weak in the minds of certain people, it's not going to fucking matter. Israel is not supported by the United States because they're perceived as a strong entity capable of supporting themselves. They're supported in the Middle East because we like to have a forward operating base there that we can have a morally convenient reason for supporting, instead of just relying on the baseline premise of, well, we want to have the resources here. Well, thank you, Jet Boy. I appreciate it. Honestly, who cares if Netanyahu is dead? There are people in Israel who could replace him. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if Netanyahu is dead. The reason Israel is evil is not because of Netanyahu. He's not exactly helping, but he's not the reason why they're evil either. He's just the latest representative of a long list of tendencies. Israel's government is filled with people a lot worse than Netanyahu could take his place. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's the same way here in America. People always want to get me to fearmonger about Trump and go off on an anti-Trump rant and shit like that. And it's fine when we're talking about shit that Trump specifically himself individually did that I think is particularly crass or classless or whatever, boorish, whatever. But when we're talking about like these foreign affairs and these domestic policies that I think are just a tendency that has been expressing itself more and more, it's like with Trump, like he could succumb to, Lewy body dementia or whatever he's got tomorrow. And like JD Vance is going to replace him, and he's going to be owned by all the same interests. He's going to be pushed along the same path. And in order to keep like the MAGA movement afloat, he's going to have to cater to the same tendencies. He's going to have to keep making the same rhetorical arguments and everything else. So it's not, and even if JD Vance were to, like disappear off the coast of Kosovo or something, then who replaces him? Fucking It would be Mike Johnson, wouldn't it be? It's like you'd have to there would have to be a lot of very mysterious things happen to a lot of people in power before you finally got to somebody reasonable, even here in America. And I have to imagine, because we helped Israel set its government up, that it works the exact same way over there. Delta Force was founded in 2008 to combat the detractors of the United Nations World Eugenics Campaign. What? Huh? Why do you care what they are, but you disregard the sins of Israel? Because they're ghouls that want to see bloodshed. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, Brock. Things started to really change for the worse for the average Iranian around 1979. It's a real shame too, because Iran has continued to modernize in certain ways, but Iran was prevented from liberalizing because we basically stopped working with them at all when they weren't being ruled by our Western puppet anymore. And the reason why, the really horrible borderline jihadi government that exists there now was able to come to power was because that Western-backed ruler was, yes, secularizing and liberalizing the country in according to in accordance with a plan that had been developing, but he was doing so in a way that was pissing off the clerics, and he was also um, working in hand in glove with Western oil companies and Western powers to cheat the Iranian people out of massive amounts of their oil wealth. And as a result, he turned the people against them. His secularization measures turned the clergy against them. And just like that, it was a perfect storm for the Iranian Revolution. And the only outcome, and this is why I keep saying, by the way, that Iran will eventually be ruled by a Shah again. It might not be as cohesive as the last time we installed the Shah, but I guarantee you, Mohammed Pahlavi, or no, I'm sorry, Reza Pahlavi will be Shah of Iran before he passes away. I guarantee it, because there is only one outcome we are satisfied with when it comes to Iran. We've wanted it since 1979. In fact, we've wanted it since 1953. We want the Shah because the Shah's and his family, they are willing to play ball with our Western oil companies, with our mineral extraction companies. Me, Daniel? You telling me that? Now the U.S. wants to make them Iraq. They didn't do this due to their good hearts. They want oil. Yeah, 100%. I mean, also, Israel bad, that's a pretty obvious position, but taking a virtue signal position ain't going to do much if you won't do something about it. So Israel's bad, but what are you going to do about it? Well, as a content creator, I actually do have a little bit of a platform where I can speak out about it, get other people to understand why they're bad, get other people to talk about it by encouraging them to do things that encourage them to socialize with real people in real life and have conversations that mean something. If you stick around for a while, you'll find out exactly what I do about it. You're not banned, Android. Thoughts of most of those terror cells being CIA/IDF trained? Well, of course they're fucking CIA or IDF trained, because we are. Um, how do I put it? Our government tends towards stupidity but likes to fancy itself very intelligent. And so as a result, we for like 40 years had a ongoing policy of funding different groups in the Middle East. Some of them were actual polities at the time, others were rebel groups, in order to achieve certain outcomes. And we didn't really vet them that hard. No, we kind of just looked at them as tools to be used against the broader problem. And as a result, due to that lack of oversight, due to that miscalculation, we'll call it, we ended up funding a lot of people who hated our ass just as much as they hated the Soviet Union. Of course, they weren't going to say that at the weapons transfer. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but they did. Their rhetoric, which we've been able to read now that we've killed so many of them and been able to dig up so much of it, would reveal that if we had just taken the time to infiltrate some of these groups first. We didn't do that. We came to them as Americans, as America, and offered them funding and support. In some cases, there was some subversion and CIA and IDF like type fucking underground type shit involved, like with, deposing Mohammed Mossadegh and shit like that. But a lot of times it's just funding some fucking shitty group, openly or secretly, but, openly to them, basically. And as a result, we have funded tons of groups that have been opposed to us. So like the Mujahideen are the perfect example I like to bring up. We funded the Mujahideen as a weapon against Soviet Russia. By making Afghanistan such a consistent battlefield and, keeping the pressure up, eventually the Soviet Union decided to withdraw. In addition, the Soviet Union was, of course, in a process of slow but sure collapse. All of these things together meant that eventually the jihadis came out thinking that they were winning. The Americans came out, felt like we had won. And what nobody knew at the time was that the jihadis saw the Soviet Union as the near enemy and America as the far enemy. America was the country that could be dealt with after the Soviet threat had been dealt with. And if America wants to give us weapons to deal with the Soviets, why not? After all, their loyalties are not to us. Their loyalties are to themselves, to each other. And the idea of general loyalty is a kind of American idea, in my opinion. A lot of people have loyalty, to themselves and their family, maybe their community, maybe their country. But they don't have, loyalty in general. In some cases, in some circles, a breach of loyalty is looked at as just any time you violate a transaction, violate someone's trust. But in a lot of cases, not really seen as such. And so, the jihadis that we helped to fund against Soviet Russia eventually started turning those weapons against us. What do you think about gun control? I think it's bad because if they take the guns away, we can't protect ourselves from criminals and the government, as we know the government is corrupt. I mean, I don't think you can use your little fucking AR-15 to protect yourself against the government anyway, but I do like the idea of people being able to protect themselves against common criminals and petty theft and stuff like that. If they're able to draw a firearm, I agree with that. And in general, I'm against a lot of the gun control measures people talk about. I do like the idea of keeping guns out of the hands of crazy people, and I do like the idea of holding gun owners accountable when they store their guns in ways that lead to them being stolen out of their houses super easily, or being taken off with by their kids with no fucking accountability at all. I think that there should be definitely some accountability there. I think that would fix a lot of the problem. But when it comes to type restrictions, nah. Magazine restrictions, nah. Even when you were allowed to run around with a machine gun, that's not what was causing most of the mass shootings. Of course, back then, mass shootings were very rare, too. I'm gonna be honest, the No Kings protest won't change a thing. There has to be something bigger, like people calling out of work and disrupting the economy. This is the 1960s protest mean nothing now. Everybody not going into work and disrupting the economy would be a form of protest. If you got 15 million people to go to DC and another 15 million people to go to Wall Street, and you got them to do that for 3 months, that would be like 10% of America's population just not going to work for however long it took. If you double that, you could get like even more. Come on now. Think creatively. The problem with guns is really the people buying it legally. Look at prohibition. People still drink alcohol if not more than was legalized. There will always be some bad person with a gun. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we should let every fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry that's pissed off at their wife go buy a gun. Okay? Sorry. Call me a lib, but I feel like the wait period probably helps. I feel like the background check probably has good effects. I feel like it probably improves people's lives more than it impinges on their freedom. Man, ask in the chat why you're banned when obviously you couldn't be banned if you're chatting has got to be the most retarded attention seeker shit ever. I don't like guns, but someone stole my bike last week and I'm still mad as fuck about it. Even thought about getting a permit over it. Well, you know, if somebody stole it out from under you, like if you weren't there when it got stolen, obviously there's probably nothing you could do. But if it got stolen where you were nearby, yeah, I mean something like that can be a great thing. Okay, we're getting close to the startup time for our watch party. We're going to be watching The Power of Nightmares, which actually talks about some of the topics we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes or so. So if you're interested, come find that. Once again, I'm going to plug the goals before we start to get ready to head out of here. We're $95.20 away from the 12-hour show. We're also 94 members away. So consider signing up for the membership. It really does help. You've got 2 weeks to reach that goal. Basically 2 weeks. It's like 13 days, 12 days, something like that. But yeah, you can also gift memberships. They're very inexpensive, so consider gifting some to your fellow chatters. It will go to people who've been subscribed for a while, usually. People who super chat, that kind of thing. Can I be a mod? Yeah, sure, Post. You can be a mod. They won't ban this one. Free Iran from Islamic dictatorship and Islamic oppression. Oh boy. We got a plant, y'all. We got a plant, y'all. Agreed, but how many dangerous people still have guns? There will always be an illegal way to access them. Yeah, and I don't think we should expand legal ways to access them to people who are not otherwise prone to a bunch of illegal activity. If you're desperate enough to get a gun, yeah, I guess there are a number of ways you can get it, but that's why my host of solutions to the gun, background check and the 3-day wait time and everything, but also to introduce pretty stiff penalties for any time a legal gun owner is found to have stored their gun in a manner that was irresponsible and allowed someone, whether it was a child of theirs or a criminal, to break in, get that gun, and use it in commission of a crime. If that became standard and commonplace, people would start storing their guns better. People would be a lot fucking, and yeah, if you sell to them too, would be another fucking provision of it. People will be a lot more careful about who they sell to. Suddenly, you start actually approaching the problem with sensible policy. You don't prevent people who are willing to store their gun properly and go through a basic background check and a 3-day wait time to buy whatever gun they fucking want to. And hey, presto, legal fucking gun owners can continue to protect themselves against criminals, and it suddenly is a lot harder for criminals to get guns because now they're breaking into houses where the guns are stored in safes instead of in a closet or in a bedside stand without so much as a trigger lock on it. Hello. You're an air plant because you live on hot air. When I imagine my imagination, cats can talk. Yeah. You'd be amazed at the crazy shit my brain can come up with when I let it rain free. You think Epstein was working with Mossad? Probably. Seems to me like he was a freelance information guy. Hi, Autumn. I'm good. Hoping I survive this watch through of Power of Nightmares. Hoping I don't get dinged for it as well. PP man, you're too funny. You need to stop calling me a creature and trolling about this Iran shit and just be funny. I called you a plant because it's just like, dude, I have made it clear in my many and varied criticisms that I don't like the fact that Iran has an Islamic government. I just don't think the path towards getting rid of that government is a Western-backed leader installed at the end of a gun. Sorry, call me crazy. Just don't think that's going to lead to a sustainable long-term solution. Supreme Court says that any new gun laws that come out have to go back to a historical tradition and text between the time of our founding and the Civil War. Yeah, well, if Roe versus Wade could get overturned, I bet that ruling could get overturned too. I've been listening to my favorite podcast. This episode speaking about the files. While the trafficking crimes are horrific, you know what else he had a very large interest in? AI. Yep. Microtransactions too. He said he liked the idea of getting kids hooked on an economy young. So yeah. Epstein was the nexus of evil in the modern age. But I fear he was not the only one. He couldn't have been the only one. And that's what's most horrifying. Any good material dialectic view of history will tell you that there are lots of Epsteins still out there. Epstein started the Trump movement from Gamergate to 4chan trolling. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, well, kind of not. I mean, here's the thing. I think that Epstein helped to create the online fervor and the fervor in certain people who wouldn't have otherwise joined up with it in certain ways. But like, there was also there's a core group of people that has always existed in America that Donald Trump tapped into, and we need to not forget that. Like, the base of what is MAGA are a group of people who have been pretty fucking hateful for a long time. Long before 4chan, long before Gamergate, that core group of people, but you're right in that 4chan, Gamergate, these big movements in 2014 and 2015, all the way into 2016, these helped to provide the rhetorical fuel to the fire and the critical mass of participants that wouldn't have otherwise been involved. AGI, he was funding research into it. Emails speaking about replacing most jobs with AI. Also speaks of population control by making education more expensive for one. Also famine and forest fires. Like I said, man, nexus of evil in the modern world. And then you realize there are more. Think about all the people he was emailing about these awful things. Now, I'm of the opinion that AI, in theory, like, the idea is not, I think, inherently corrupt. Like, I don't know, maybe we can talk about it when I get back in, before we go do the watch party, which I keep postponing. Not because I don't want to do it, I do, but because we're having such a good time talking and all. Anyway, I'll be right back. Okay. So what I was going to say is that personally, I kind of like the idea that eventually we could get to a place where humanity is mostly freed from, like, rote manual labor type of jobs, where the jobs that do exist, like the jobs, quote unquote, that do exist, are things that people are paid well to do and happy doing, and where AI and automation in general is used to create that sort of baseline where we've got, like, resources that are produced in high enough quantities and distributed so well that we can, like, transition away from this, like, labor reliant society. No, Phoebe, I'm sorry I have to take Vosh's view on this. AI is demon tech that corrupts everything. I'm sorry, the humble Hufflepuff, I just can't agree. I think that the, like, idea is good. I think the ownership is what's at stake. Like, if it was worker cooperatives, trying to produce AI, and they were, like, trying to position this as a thing that other worker cooperatives could use to further automate their production and enable them to do. Like, I feel like there is a way that this could be helping society if the people who owned it were specifically minded towards using this for the greater good of humanity. I feel like the problem is that the people who are pushing it are not geared towards that. I do appreciate the $5 though. Stakeholder capitalism is what AI/AGI leads to. They will call it capitalism light, but if we do nothing and provide them nothing, it will only get worse for us. Oh, well, I know that. That's why I keep advocating for hey, we need to do this whole we radically change the framework of our society thing now, so that we can empower further movements against the encroachment of these technologies without any regulations or any mind towards actually improving things. I'm willing to hear people out on the idea that the technology itself is somehow cursed, but that just seems a little silly to me. It can't, though. Chatbots literally make everyone stupid that uses it. Well, I'm not talking about chatbots. Chatbots are not the only form of AI that are out there. Yeah, I know chatbots aren't going to be taking over factory jobs anytime soon. But bear in mind, I'm just going to put it this way. My grandfather, before he became a union plumber, he used to work for Chrysler. And at the time he worked there, I think it was like the late 60s or maybe the mid 70s, something like that. It was in that era. They were starting to heavily automate. Now, auto manufacturing has always been one of the most heavily automated fields of manufacturing that there are, simply because of the weights involved. But throughout the 70s and 80s, it went from being, like most of the automation was just in getting parts from one place to another, to now there are machines that do people's whole jobs. Literally, a person's whole job is being replaced by a machine. Just an entire field of people is now no longer needed at factories across the country because of this specific tech. And I remember him telling me about what it was like watching the workforce slowly dwindle as more and more automation got introduced. And as eventually even he was laid off when automation came for his job. And he also, I remember him also telling me about how wrong he was. He said he used to tell me that he said back then that this technology was not going anywhere, that it was never going to be able to replace everybody's job, that it had a higher failure and error rate than a lot of humans did, that it was just a race to the bottom, but that ultimately the automation kept going and the factories kept getting bigger, but running on less workers per square foot. And somehow it never stemmed, despite his criticisms, So I feel like we're going through similar growing pains right now. I agree that the current trajectory of AI is horrible because there is no plan to provide the working class with number one, there's no plan to even provide us with some kind of life afterwards, but also there's not even an incentive to provide us with a plan because we aren't the ones in control of it. And that to me seems like the bigger problem than the technology itself. I mean, how would you even address the technology itself? To what degree do we ban it? Boston is the only robotics company worth a shit. AI won't be replacing doctors either. Maybe. I don't know, man. I just don't want to be one of the doubters that was like, nah, it's never going anywhere. It's never going to happen. Nope. And then, in 20 years, I'm still a YouTuber. And I have to account for the fact that, well, how did you not see the fact that, 90% of American working class people would be, hustling for crumbs worse than they even were before? I don't want to be one of those people. I want to be one of those people saying, hey, AI is here. It's here to stay. We need to get a hold of it. I'm a farm girl. Nice, Owen. Nice. They can already do surgery with robots that are operated by people. What stops them from coupling with that with AI? Yeah, literally. What stops them from coupling that with AI? Yeah, I don't understand it either. I mean, I feel like some people are just dead set against this technology because they see how it's being used, they see what the trajectory is, and I agree with many of their criticisms, but then they use those criticisms to justify a position that I think should just be a rhetorical thing. Now, if you want to say that AI is evil, as a rhetorical device, I guess I'm okay with it. But if you actually believe that the very concept itself is inherently evil, it's why? Why though? Good night, y'all. Early day tomorrow. Well, it is already 12:30. I am a retard. In my opinion, the AI bubble is propped up by the petrodollar, and chances are it is going to go away with its collapse. I don't think that's true, man. People thought that about the internet with the .com collapse, but look what happened there. People thought, Y2K was going to wipe out internet infrastructure and wipe out the modern day economy and everything else, and nothing really happened. And people thought that the .com bubble was going to, oh man, this is going to force a change back to the old ways. Nope. Just laid the ground for the new players. There are things that I think shouldn't exist for the fabric of society to hold together. AI will bring more suffering than it will ever bring, than it ever will good for the average Joe. Do you think it has to be that way, though, Taylor? I mean, maybe you do. I'm just curious. Do you think it's necessarily that way by virtue of some trait that the technology possesses? I'm a data architect. I don't believe in AGI, and the generative AI isn't going to be profitable when the Middle East dollars dry up. What does AGI remind me? Remind me what that stands for. Aripidu? Well, what I'm arguing is that when AI starts doing thinking for you, you start losing skills, and those parts of your brain will atrophy by not using it. Well, sure. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. Yeah, you shouldn't let AI do your thinking for you. Artificial general intelligence? Oh, okay. Why don't you believe in it? Why don't you believe in it, one of them, Smiths? I'm not saying you guys are wrong about the petrodollar and the collapse of the economic model currently being upheld by AI, petrodollar, and gambling. I know this. All of this I know. I'm just I feel like you guys are making the same exact mistake people in the 90s made, thinking that the internet was going to go away because of the fucking .com crash. That's all. I'm just saying that the whole, like, the data centers, I don't know, man. There's been too much technology poured into these data centers. It's sunk cost fallacy. And there's nobody more susceptible to sunk cost fallacy than a heavily financialized economy and, like, various government powers. So I just feel like these data centers exist, they keep popping up, and as long as they exist and as long as they remain there, there's going to be a baseline incentive to make them useful in some way. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not saying it's like necessarily good to be pursuing AI. I just don't know, man. I just don't know. Do human beings really need to do like tons of fucking manual labor every day to feel good about themselves? Because I feel like there's plenty of people that don't and feel just fine, you know? And there's people who don't feel fine who idealize that, who don't do it, you know? So it's like, I feel like we could save a lot of labor hours for the average human being if we were able to capture this technology back from the clutches of the billionaire class. I feel like it could be used to provide average people with a lifestyle, you know, that in combination obviously with other things. It's not like it's going to be like the magic machine. I hope that's obvious. Maybe that's what's missing in the rhetoric. I don't know. I fear for the day they figure out how to allow AI to function with the capabilities of a human brain. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it's not about me. Well, I kind of fear that too. But that, I think, is different, right? Because once you... I don't think that we should... I don't feel like we should pursue that level of singularity. I don't think we should. I just flatly do not think it's a good idea. I think it's cool that we have large language models on some level that can mimic human speech. I think it would be nice if we could figure out how a way to do that in a more efficient way that uses less energy and everything else. Or if we were powering our grid with, but, you know, the idea of an AI having a human brain introduces stakes. Now this AI has stakes. They've got skin in the game. Because we don't know how the human brain truly works at this point. Generative AI is a fancy prediction machine. It's not truly thinking. Also, I could be wrong too. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. We don't know how the human brain truly works on a basic fundamental level. And, you know, the same can be said for the most part of AGI. Or, yeah, like, not the same can be said, but that means that it's harder for us to develop AGI because it would be reliant on functions we don't presently understand ourselves. Living life for labor and living life with no labor are two sides of the same depression coin. Well, yeah, but I would... like, I advocate for a society where there are labors people are encouraged to engage in that are directly, what's the word I'm looking for? I push for a society where people don't necessarily have to work long hours in an office or long hours at a factory, but can work 2 hours at a factory cleaning things up, and then, or not a factory, 2 hours at a park working things up. Fuck, I can't speak. 2 hours at a park cleaning things up, and then like 2 hours at their community garden, pulling weeds and sowing new crops. And then they can spend like 2 hours clearing old storm drains if they're particularly strong. And then that, you know, that's it. And like that's their like contribution to their community that day. And maybe the next day it's something completely different. Maybe the next day they're helping a neighbor like expand their house or repair their bathroom or something. And maybe that takes all day. I don't know, man. I envision a society with less of the drudgery we hate and more of the drudgery we like. filled with the rewards that we all look forward to, that have become increasingly more rare. It's a great idea, but it's not how it will go, and we can no longer stop it. Um, well, that's spooky. We had a chance years ago, not so much now. I don't know. I deeply hate chatbots and anything that's trying to take over the human brain and leave us room to actually be inquisitive and think for ourselves. So what about Google? Like the search engine? I mean, like, I guess I'm being a little pedantic here for the sake of content, but um, Google also reduces the amount of thinking it's required to do to get somewhere. Even before they started adding AI into the search and everything, um, like if you wanted to know something, there was a time where you had to, like, you might have to read some reference material just to understand some more dense reference material just to be able to get to the information you're looking for, much less how much you're going to have to read to actually be able to understand it. Nowadays, like, you can, even before the generative AI got added to Google search, like I said, you could search, what is this thing, and you could find an article, and if there were words in there you didn't understand, you could search those and get articles explaining those. you know that's fine, right? Well, of course it's fucking not. Ay, ay, ay. Y'all, of course there have been some fucked up things that have happened with this technology. I don't think I've ever denied that. Stay hydrated, Phoebe. Good call. Okay, we are going to end this here in a couple minutes. We are going to try and watch The Power of Nightmares on this channel over on my desktop. So, um, stick around for that. And it's a really good documentary. I really want you guys to watch it with me. It'll be really fun. If you can be talked into suicide by AI, your parents have failed you. I don't care how thick that is. Yeah, I actually agree with you 100%, Taylor. Yeah. Yeah, if you can be talked into suicide by AI, your parents have failed you. Like, in general, I think if your brain can actually be corrupted to the point where you're thinking differently because of AI, like, I don't know, I use chatbots every so often just to, like, get source, like, compile lists of sources on given information and stuff like that, or to use it like an advanced search engine. Basically, it's really good for that kind of thing. But I don't think differently because of it. I don't answer every question in my head with AI. If the server goes bye-bye, so does AI. Okay, Ted Kaczynski. Settle on down there. Yeah, settle on down, Uncle Ted. It is interesting to me that um we'll say, violent colored anarcho-primitivism. It's funny to me that that's becoming like a popular position now. Are we going to see the Butlerian jihad? Is that what this is all going to lead to? Like the working class of America finally finally realizes it's being left behind, so it just like raids the data centers. We all like destroy our phones and raid the data. Like, is that what this is all leading to? Please, I ask, go cold turkey without any chatbots. I promise you are thinking differently. I don't know. I'll go multiple days without ever popping open Gemini, so I don't feel like I am. I feel like I definitely could. I don't know if I've used it today. I can't think of anything I've looked up on Gemini today. And I don't feel particularly compelled to. How can it influence your brain if you specifically tell it to be short, to the point, and have minimal, like, personality flair? And especially if you're, like, looking into the sources it's providing you, which is the main thing I do with it. TBH, totally ignorant of Terry Davis, but thanks for a new name to research. I've never heard of Terry Davis either. Working IT, what are your thoughts on Terry Davis? No idea about him. There was a couple that turned down $26 million for their farm. Was to become a data center. Yeah, I like stories like that. Yeah, I don't support AI being fucking developed the way it's being developed with the target that it's being developed to go towards. I support AI being developed under the constraints of a worker-owned system that we might build, at some point in the future. I support the idea, not its current implementation. I think that right now we're just seeing like the barest frayed edges of what I would even consider like what AI could do, and even that little bit is being exclusively used in furtherance of profit. Sorry if my comments seemed cynical, but I'm still not a cynic, but I'm ever the pragmatist. We need him right now. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Taylor, really interesting take there. Yeah, I went through a hardcore anarcho-primitivist phase, and I feel like at this point I'm still like an amprim in theory. And if you listen to a lot of what I tell people to do, it's the type of shit an amprim will tell you to do in preparation for the collapse. I've just realized you can't phrase it that way, but maybe my day has come. Maybe I should be telling people to abandon the life of technology. The problem you run into if you are an anarcho-primitivist trying to make content online is that you're an anarcho-primitivist making content online. It kind of like defeats it seems self-contradictory. So I would have to constantly be fielding the question like, how can you claim to be an amprim when you clearly have electricity? And that would be like 50% of my channel's content from here on out. But I still feel like most of what you should be telling people to do is stuff that's largely in preparation for a collapse. Because even if we don't succumb to AI and are left in the wayside by the rich people, even if that wasn't at our doorstep, eventually we're going to run out of oil. And we are not moving quickly enough towards renewables for us to have any real hope of surviving that. So, eventually we will have to live through at least a few generations of life being pretty much like it was in the Bronze Age, maybe. in terms of the technology that we have access to, but we'll be surrounded with the relics of a once more technologically advanced society. But if you tell people that's coming, they just look at you sideways and think you're fucking trying to be a dickhead. But it's like, I mean, you know, seems like there's lots of swords of Damocles hanging over our heads. And I don't know if you guys can see those while frayed. I only know of it from the jokes I heard when looking for my OS flavor running. Base to us seems unique. That does seem very unique. Holy shit, that's weird. There's a lot of speculation about the government harassing him. Pretty sure he had schizophrenia and they made him crazier than what he already was. This from what I gathered. Aw, that's sad. Anytime schizophrenics get a little bit of fame, a bit of notoriety or something like that, there's always some government goon coming around to fuck with them, make them even worse. Honestly, though, I wonder if like fame just kind of does that to schizophrenics. And I say that with no hatred or judgment in my heart. Absolutely none. I don't think it's right that our society treats schizophrenic people the way it does at all. I think it's like reprehensible the way so many people are willing to see someone having a breakdown in public, whether it's schizophrenia related, autism related, or not, and like make fun of that person or clip it for the internet. Just sucks. I mean, not him, but someone like him, lol. Someone better. I'm not joking. I know you're not. I know you're not. For one, this one needs to be a little bit more technically skilled. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. We are going to go do that watch party. I guess the donations are just going to be anemic today. I don't know why that is, but it's fine. Thank you guys for donating so far. For donating, that's funny. I can't believe I said donating. Thank you guys for the donos so far. We are now only $89 and 94 members away from the 12-hour show. So please join the membership, gift memberships, etc. I will be right back with that watch party. Be right back.